Hi, this is Vicky Payne. I'm a GP and holistic vet in East Sussex and veterinary advisor to Breakthrough and Oscars. Today we're talking about how pet professionals can help their clients prepare their pets for the festive season, so the run up to Christmas, Christmas itself and into New Year. I'm not going to talk extensively about fireworks because the information on fireworks is in the other video blogs that I've done, and the advice for New Year will be exactly the same as it is for Bonfire Night and any other events with fireworks that go on throughout the year. What we do need to think about with Christmas, it's a great time of year, it's a wonderful time of year, but not for everybody and not for all pets. The first thing to think about is there's like to be a change in routine for pets. So children might be off school, people might have time off work, people might be visiting relatives, friends coming round, loads of different stuff going on at Christmas which can change your routine. Apart from vets and vet nurses, most of us are going to get a couple of days off over Christmas. It's worth thinking if pets are going to be upset by changes in routine, things that we can put in place well before Christmas to get them used to that. We've obviously got the breakthrough food which can help pets to be calmer, help dogs to be calmer and to cope with new situations and to learn new things. So for a slightly anxious dog, getting breakthrough food in place would be a really useful thing to do. You might also want to recommend things like the Canny Comfort range. So we've got the dog appeasing pheromone diffusers and collars, which again can be used to just give a background level of calm to the dog's safe space in the house. If your clients are going to have loads of decorations or parties, things like that, advise them to have a quiet area for the dog. So it might be a room in the house which nothing is changed in, and where you use products like the dog appeasing pheromone diffusers to keep it nice and calm for the dog. Somewhere where you can have some background noise, maybe from a radio, just to kind of keep a nice, calm, safe base for the dog to go if everything's getting a little bit too much. I mean, how many of us wouldn't like one of those for ourselves over Christmas, to be fair? When parties are planned, it's usually best that the dog is out of the way for all sorts of reasons, including food and decorations and gifts being out, which I'll talk about later. But also just because it can be very unnerving for a dog for lots of people to be coming into the house. There can be safety issues around opening the door and the dog possibly panicking and getting out. So having a safe place for the dog to be, and maybe coming out later to meet people when everything's calmed down a little bit, it's a safer idea than letting them be out for the whole party time. If you're going to be out at parties and going out and leaving your pets, then thinking about who looks after those pets. It may be appropriate for them to be left if they've had good enrichment in the daytime, so the dog's had a good walk, done some training, done some scent work, things like that. Can possibly be left with something like a stuffed toy with some food in to keep them happy while people are out for the evening. That's absolutely fine. If dogs suffer with things like separation anxiety, then it may be more appropriate to have somebody come and babysit them for the night. Or if you're going to be away for a couple of days or have lots of parties and things going on, even popping them into boarding kennels for a few days, although obviously that has to be planned well in advance. And again, for any different situations like that, the calming products, calming tablets, the dog appeasing pheromone products from Canny Comfort and the breakthrough can always all be really useful things to do. While we're thinking about changing routines over the Christmas period, I think it's really important to think of the older pet or pets with mobility problems. So what can happen over Christmas is that people have got more time, especially Boxing Day. You've sat around all day on Christmas Day, not really been out very much, stuffed yourself with food. There's a traditional need on Boxing Day to get out and have a nice long walk, especially if it's a crisp, cold, lovely Boxing Day. And while that's fine, I think people need to consider whether the dog always needs to come. So when I'm dealing with older patients, I'll be advising that they have a similar level of activity every day. So not doing the same walk, but if they're okay doing half an hour at a moderate pace, then that's what they do every day. I try to avoid, with my older patients with mobility problems, I really try to avoid the situation where they do short walks in the week, long walks at the weekend, because that just tends to exacerbate their muscle pain, their arthritic pain. And Christmas is probably the worst time for this, because we can see days where dogs are getting minimal exercise because the weather's bad, there's lots of stuff to do, preparing for Christmas, going out to Christmas parties, Christmas Day itself. And then we get a couple of days between Christmas and New Year, everybody wants to drag the dog out for great long walks. And the truth is some of them just can't cope with it. So I always see patients over the Christmas period whose pain is worse, and it's normally because people have done that little bit too much with them over Christmas. So if you're advising clients on how to look after their older pets over Christmas, then definitely moderation is key with exercise, knowing when to put the limit on it, maybe not keep throwing that ball that they got for Christmas over and over and over, because nothing's worse than them being sore and miserable having had a great walk. The next bit of Christmas that I'm going to talk about is probably, you know, the vet's favourite. We all joke a little bit at this time of year, but we know we're going to get dogs in that have eaten things that they shouldn't. I'm sure any pet professional and most pet owners out there by now know the things that our dogs shouldn't be eating. Chocolate is probably my number one. Every Christmas we're going to get dogs that have got into the chocolate stash and eaten it. Dark chocolate is more dangerous than milk chocolate. White chocolate isn't dangerous in terms of theobromide toxicity, but it is high fat and high sugar and can cause stomach upsets. Be very, very wary. Some of the high quality milk chocolates out there, the sort of things you might get given as a Christmas present, they can be as high as 60% cocoa solids, which is actually more dangerous chocolate compounds than there are in a cheap dark chocolate. So just because it's milk chocolate doesn't mean it's fine. It's well worth, if you're doing social media stuff coming up to Christmas, linking into Vets Now and Veterinary Poisons will all have information on chocolate toxicity, and there's even chocolate toxicity calculators which you can use, which can give owners an idea of whether they need to go to the vets right this minute. But if in doubt, you know, go to the vets. Raisins and dried fruit are even more serious than chocolate. There seem to be individual susceptibilities of dogs to grapes and raisins and dried grape products. There are reports of, say, an 8-kilo dachshund getting seriously ill off as little as 5 grapes. So we have got to take any ingestion of these things really seriously. It's not just grapes and dried grape products, so raisins, sultanas and currants. It's anything with those things in. And as we know, loads of the Christmas favourites are chock full of raisins. The mince pies, the Christmas cake, the Christmas pudding, stollen, all my favourite things. I've seen at least 3 dogs die of raisin poisoning. You'll initially see vomiting. It's really worth, if you're asked questions at that point, do I need to go to the vet? I think any level of raisin or dried fruit or grape eating, I would tell people to contact their vet because very small quantities can be poisonous. Yeah, lots of dogs are just going to get vomiting and diarrhea and be absolutely fine. Once you get the symptoms of kidney failure, it's very, very hard to save them, and nobody wants a Christmas tragedy. Watch out for food out at parties. So a lot of human snacks, crisps and peanuts and things like that are going to be very high in salt, very high in fat. Just likely to cause tummy upsets, but we don't need tummy upsets over Christmas. Be careful feeding scraps of Christmas food. So, the cases I've had. People thinking cutting a bit of the fat off the ham and giving it to the dog was a great idea. Well, the dog loved it and then came down with screaming pancreatitis. So being really careful feeding any human food. Same would go for, skin off the turkey, things like that. Seems really innocent, but it can leave your dog in plenty of trouble. A newer threat is xylitol, also known as birch sugar. It's sometimes being now put up there as birch sugar. It's a very popular sugar substitute. It's used obviously to reduce the sugar content of foods, but also to give a really cool, crispy mouthfeel. So you're more likely to find it in maybe fairy cakes iced for Christmas, something like that, to give it a minty, cold tingle in the mouth. Small quantities of xylitol can be really dangerous. Initially causes the blood sugar to drop really low. That can be countered by putting them on a glucose drip for a day or 2, but if they survive that, it can then cause liver failure a week down the line. So it's a really nasty one, and one that we'd rather avoid. Obviously it could be in chewing gum as well, and it might be that you're fancying a kiss under the mistletoe. You've got your sugar-free gum. Just make sure it's out of the reach of pets, because they will eat the most ridiculous things. If we're thinking about foods that pets can eat at Christmas, I get asked regularly, can my dog have a Christmas dinner? Can the cat have a Christmas dinner? And I'm going to say yes. As long as you've not got a pet with specific dietary intolerances or a really sensitive tummy, yeah, why not make them a Christmas dinner? Especially if you're having chicken or turkey, some lean white meat from the chicken or turkey, a little bit of boiled vegetables, absolutely fine for a pet Christmas dinner, unlikely to cause any tummy upsets. Avoid feeding the skin, avoid stuffing and gravy because they can have garlic and onion products in them. Avoid roast potatoes just because they're going to be high in fat and salt. But yeah, little Christmas dinner, I don't think is too much of a problem. When thinking about other treats that pets can have over Christmas, just make sure that people don't overdo it. Yeah, we all like to buy our pets something for Christmas, but if people are buying their dogs treats for Christmas, just recommend that they're things that they've had before, that they give them in moderation. Most treat packets are going to have a recommended feeding amount on the back. Too many treats, just the same as for you and me, the kids, the dogs are going to go hyper off the wall, potentially upset their stomachs. While we're talking about upset stomachs, I think it's well worth, I like to recommend around Christmas that people sort of have a tummy first aid kit in stock particularly for their dogs, but also useful for cats as well. So I like to have in there an easily digestible food, so I'll often keep some cans or trays of a turkey and rice or turkey and sweet potato based food. And Oscars do, I think, have a turkey and sweet potato, which would be ideal for an upset stomach over Christmas. With vomiting, we might want to starve them for 12 to 24 hours. With diarrhea, the recommendation is to keep feeding, but to feed little and often. I also keep in my Christmas kind of what I call doggy hangover first aid kit, a probiotic and binding paste. So something like the IntestaPro paste from BFAR. It can just really help to dry up the diarrhea, to bind up any toxins, and has good probiotics in there and prebiotics to help settle the stomach down and get them back to normal after a digestive upset. Last up on my Christmas countdown is the slightly controversial subject of buying pets at Christmas. Traditionally, I think the message that has gone out from pet professionals has been don't get pets at Christmas. And certainly I would wholeheartedly say never, ever, ever, ever go for pets as surprise Christmas presents, because a pet is a lifetime commitment. For a dog, we're looking at between 10 and 15 years. I think estimates now put the cost of dog ownership at maybe £1,000 a year minimum, and that's without anything going wrong. That's just covering, vaccinations, worming, flea treatment, insurance, and obviously a good quality dog food. So a pet definitely shouldn't be a surprise present. It's a lifetime of commitment. However, Christmas can be, for some people, a really good time to get a pet. So I would never rule it out completely. If you're looking at dogs, a lot of litters are going to be ready around Christmas time. Breeders don't get a lot of choice when their bitches come into season, and so you can get litters that are ready for rehoming around Christmas. If you are talking to somebody who is a family, maybe an adult family or older children, and they're asking about whether it's okay to bring a puppy, kittens are less likely to be around at Christmas, but particularly a puppy into the home at Christmas, there's certainly a lot of thought needs to go into it, but it can work. A lot of people have time off over Christmas. They maybe have a week to 10 days, which are ideal for settling a new pet into the household. They just have to be prepared to give up normal Christmas. So if you're bringing a new animal into the house, you aren't going to do the decorations, you aren't going to do the parties, you're not going to have all that rigmarole going on. But it may be that actually that's a great time for this particular family to have a bit more free time, a bit of time off work, and actually really commit themselves to looking after a new pet. Sometimes you'll be talking to clients who are really struggling with pester power from a young child who wants to own a pet. What's more appropriate than buying the child a pet over Christmas is almost buying them the promise of a pet at some point in the future. So I've often advised my clients to buy books on caring for a pet, so whatever pet the child wants, whether they want a rabbit, guinea pig, cat. Dog is going to be a family commitment, let's be honest, but buying books about it, perhaps buying some things that will be useful as and when they get the pet. It gives a little bit of time, even if you've bought sort of, a run and a cage for a pair of guinea pigs, and that is what's opened on Christmas Day, with the promise that once Christmas and New Year are done and everything settles, then you'll go and buy the actual guinea pigs. There is the chance, if the child's changed their mind by the time you get to the middle of New Year, it's much easier to get to send back the guinea pig's run than it is when you're dealing with live animals. Most children, even the most committed child who's really going to look after that pet in the long term, there are too many other distractions for them around Christmas to make giving the pet at Christmas a sensible option. But definitely look at pet care products, look at books that will prepare them for owning a pet, and that can be a way to not give in to the pester power, but to allow them to have that animal if you're prepared to take it on as a family, but without actually introducing the animal at Christmas.